The stim case is one of the newest additions to Escape from Tarkov in patch 12.12, and while I think the general consensus is that it's pretty overpowered, I figured I would do a really quick video showing what I keep in my stim case and how I think you can extract the most value out of it while you're in raid. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So we're talking about the stim case, aka the Injector's case. You get these from therapists really quickly at level 3. There is a barter. This barter ends up being around 700,000 rubles if you buy everything off the flea market at the current flea market value. The only other way to purchase it is on the flea market. I think you can get these in the marked rooms, and that's why you can buy them on the flea market, and they're about 1,000,000 rubles. So definitely cheaper to do the barter, and even cheaper if you just kind of start saving this stuff towards the Injector case. But this is something we wanted for a really long time, and I don't think anybody anticipated it being this big. 4x4 being able to hold 16 different stims at a time is pretty crazy. I play a lot of like Shoreline. I don't play a lot of labs. If you play labs and you have like the black key card, you can pull out tons and tons of stims, but I don't play a lot of labs, so I don't often find too many stims in raid. Sometimes you can find 2, 3, 4 if you kill a bunch of PMCs and they all have propitols or morphines on them. But for the most part, I keep mine relatively full with only about 4, 5, or 6 open slots. And that's because there's so much value in a lot of these stims that a lot of people don't really use too often. So at least really quickly breaking down my thought process for it, I like bringing a bunch of morphine in. I think the general consensus is meta is bringing either a Vaseline, ibuprofen, or Golden Star into raid with you because these painkillers last, anywhere between 250 and 350 seconds. And so they last a really long time. They have multiple uses. They only take up one slot. So this ends up being something that people use a lot. The big thing with these, though, is that they take so long to use, 6, 7, 8 seconds to actually use the item. And then certain ones like the Golden Star gives you like a crazy contusion or whatever 4 or 5 seconds after you use it, so you can't get right back into the fight. So I do keep one of those on me unless I, need something to put something else in my secure container. But I like keeping morphine in my Injector case because this is a painkiller that lasts 300 seconds, so almost as long as a Golden Star, and I think as long as Vaseline and ibuprofen, and it only takes 2 seconds to use, and there is no like hand tremor, no after effects. Some of the other stims give you all sorts of craziness. This is just a flat. It removes a certain amount of hydration and energy. And then no hand tremor, no contusion. It only takes 2 seconds. So I like keeping these in here basically as like a pseudo Golden Star or ibuprofen that's much, much quicker to use. You know what I mean? It's one extra click to open up the Injector case. But if you're in the middle of a fight or something like that, you can pop these. Additionally, what was frustrating about the old system without having the Injector case, if you brought like morphine or propitol and you got into a fight that you thought was going to be a big fight, but it wasn't, or you killed everybody really quickly, you pre-popped it, and then you have another fight later, you were basically then, after popping your propitol, relying the rest of the raid on your Golden Star or your ibuprofen as your main painkiller, which was frustrating, at least to me. So if I pop my morphine and I get into a fight and I win that fight and I want to have another quick painkiller queued up, I just pull this out, rebind it, and then now I've got an additional one. So these are really cheap. Morphines are only about 10,000 rubles. So I like keeping them in there. If I happen to find a bunch of stims in raid that are more valuable, I'll just take one of these out or something like that. But I think that there's a lot of value in having the extra morphine. They're much quicker to use than the Golden Star or the ibuprofen. Now, after the morphine, you can see I've got a ton of the other stims. I would say I would take these 3 out, and these 4 down here, down below are the ones I would keep in here most often. The m.u.l.e is obviously a huge deal if you have a ton of stuff that you want to take out. The weight system is brutal, 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 and it only takes you killing like 1 or 2 people and finding a little bit of loot to like be barely able to move or walk out of your raid, especially if you have a quest item or something and you want to get out and you want to be able to move. This increases your weight limit by 50% for 900 seconds. You do take a little bit of damage, 0.1 damage every second for 900 seconds, so you're constantly taking damage, and then you do take a little bit extra damage, 9% extra damage except to your head. So this isn't something you want to take all the time. This is something you want to take sparingly. The other reason why you want to take it sparingly is that they're expensive. They're about 80 to 90,000 rubles per, but most of the time, if you take a m.u.l.e and you get out of your raid, it's because you have way more than 80,000 rubles worth of value that you want to get out of that raid. So these are great. These are really powerful stims. There is a downside to it, and they are expensive, but having these on me, especially because it doesn't have to take up a slot now, having this on me is always a must until you get like elite strength and endurance, if we ever do. The other one is the SJ6. This is your stamina stim, max stamina and max stamina recovery for 240 seconds. You do get a little hand tremor and tunnel effect after that. These are huge in conjunction with a m.u.l.e. If you pop a m.u.l.e. and an SJ6, you're going to be able to really haul it out of there. If you get a close spawn to something that you need, you can pop an SJ6 and make sure that you're the first one there. Or even if you're just a little overweight, but you have something really important on you and you really want to get out of that raid, you don't really have to take the m.u.l.e. You can pop the SJ6. There is a ton of value in this stim. There's a ton of like practical uses to have a bunch of extra stamina. So the SJ6 is definitely something I like to have in there. These are about 45,000 rubles. I also craft these quite a bit in the medical station. You can buy, if you have the NaCls, you can craft or buy the piles of meds. It's 2 piles of meds, one of these, and then the SJ1s. You buy these off the flea market for like 30K, and then you can craft 2 of the SJ6s, and those are, like we said, about 50K, 40K, depending on the day. So that seems worth it, and I think those have more value in them. The next stim is the Propital. Obviously, this is one of the most popular painkillers in the game. Not only is it a painkiller for 240 seconds, it's a stim, so it only takes 2 seconds to use, but it actually heals you for 1 HP per second for 300 seconds, so you get 300 HP over the course of a few minutes. You do get a hand tremor and a tunnel, but this stim is very, very good. They're pretty cheap because they're craftable as well. You can craft these in the hideout in batches of 7. You can find these in raids, so they end up being only about 17 to 18,000 rubles, which is a really good value for this. Eventually, I just end up running these as my main painkiller, but I would even still have an additional one in there for those heals. And then speaking of heals, the etg is the other one here. The etg is huge. It heals you for 6.5 HP per second for 60 seconds. So this ends up being 390 HP that this gives you over the course of 1 minute. This is huge. You pop this, you start stapling your limbs back together, and you're just going to heal. If you get hit by a grenade and your whole body is down to red, you just pop this, boom, and you're up really, really quickly. This is incredible stim. However, it is very, very expensive. This is about 100,000 rubles per. You can barter for this with 4 of the shampoo from therapists, but they are basically always sold out. So it's about 100K on the flea market. It's brutal, but they are incredible stims. And the fact that you can keep all of this now in one cell is what's huge. You used to have to, have a whole cell in your inventory for your SJ6 or your m.u.l.e. or your etg or an extra painkiller. Now that you can keep all this in one cell is huge. Now, really quickly, I want to talk about an alternate to the etg because this stim is super powerful. However, it is very, very expensive. Now, nobody really talks about the adrenaline. It's not that great of a stim. It's nice that it's a painkiller for 60 seconds. You get a little bit of strength of endurance, and you do get a little bit of healing. People don't talk about that often. It's 4 HP a second for 15 seconds, so faster than the Propital, but for not as much time as the Propital and not as much time as the etg. But that ends up being about 60 HP. And if you pop an adrenaline and a Propital at the same time, you end up over the course of that 300 seconds at about 360 HP. So almost the same amount of HP that an etg gives you. It takes a little bit longer. However, the adrenaline is also only like 15 or 16,000 rubles, and the Propital is only like 17,000 rubles. So for like a third of the price, you get almost as much healing. Between this and the Propital, you can almost get like a poor man's etg, which is understandable because these are very, very expensive. So moving into the other 3 that I like to keep personally that I would say aren't as important, the next most important thing I think I would definitely personally keep one of these on these days is the Jessekazam. And the big thing here is that it stops light bleeds and heavy bleeds and prevents new bleeds for 180 seconds. So I think we've all been there where we get shot by Magnum Buck and we've got a light bleed and 2 heavy bleeds. And not only does it take time to use the 2 uses of your hemostat and then use your HP, but then you have to start healing yourself. And all the while those heavy bleeds are taking you down. Hopping in here and popping a Jessekazam just instantly stops all bleeds. If you're still in that fight, if somebody gave you heavy bleeds and they're still alive and you're still in that fight, this is going to prevent new bleeds from happening for the next few minutes. And then you can just start healing up or get right back into the fight. I think this is one of the most slept on stims because of how aggressive bleeds are now. They're about 30,000 rubles off the flea market. I would say it's worth keeping in basically all the time. The other 2 I keep in here almost as like testers. I have been testing these out and using these a little bit. I don't use them too often. The SJ1 is just nice for strength and endurance. The other one that's pretty slept on is melatonin. Melatonin is kind of the opposite of the m.u.l.e stim, where you actually take 10% less damage everywhere except for the head for 900 seconds. You get a little bit of strength, endurance, and stamina recovery. You are going to lose some hydration and some energy. So you actually just take less damage while you have this stim. The P22 injector, it does this as well, just for a shorter amount of time. So if you want something cheaper, because the melatonin is about 40,000 rubles, the P22 you can get, which just does it for a little bit shorter amount of time, 19,000 rubles, 60 seconds instead of 900 seconds. But either way, it's just interesting to have a stim in there if you're in the middle of a fight that's actually going to have you take less damage. I have tanked shots to the thorax that got me down to like 1 HP because I was on this, that 100% would have killed me. So 10% isn't a crazy amount, but especially this wipe with the damage drop off of you getting hit from farther away at some of these calibers, this could actually be pretty meaningful. So I've been testing this out. That's really it. That is how I set up my injector case. There's no right or wrong way, but I've had this question enough. The stims are a really cool addition to the game. Like we said, I think everybody agrees that 16 stims is a little OP, and a lot of these stims are definitely pretty situational, but it's really cool to kind of test these out and mix and match them, and have them all in one slot in your secure container is absolutely insane. So let me know what you think. Let me know how you set up your injector case. If there's any stims that I missed that you think are valuable or important or situational or are just fun to use. And let me know if you think that the injector case is a little OP in Escape from Tarkov. But that's about it. We are actually getting really, really close to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So if you like this video and you like my content, think about hitting that subscribe button. It means the world to me. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this helped and gave you some new ideas for what to use in the stim pouch in Escape from Tarkov. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to check out this video. If you liked the video, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. And if you're looking for people to play Tarkov with, our Discord server is an awesome place to be. That link is down below as well. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.